coming up in the Introspect Club. How do you know when you are, I guess, attracted to something that is purely a dopamine hit versus something that you are genuinely attracted to?
First of all, you need to wait 6 months.
6 months? Damn, that donut looks good, but 6 months from now, I'm going to eat that donut.
The brain has something called novelty. And after about 6 months, novelty wears off. That's why so many relationships.
Wait, so many relationships what?
Break up at the 6 month mark. And, you know, people that say, oh, he takes control of everything. It's so sweet. And then 8 months in, you're like, you're a control freak.
Oh, my God. I've had that same exact thing happen to me. I was dating someone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Introspect Club, a club where you can learn a lot about yourself through conversations with other people. My name is Chef Damisse, and I'll be your host. Welcome back, everyone, to this fabulous show we call the Introspect Club. We have another week with another special topic and another special guest. I want to talk about how our brain interacts with what we find attractive, how we relate to our own self-image, body image, and a lot of the things that people go through in terms of vanity and the things that attract us to other people. There's a science to it. There are chemicals that are happening in our brains that are making us do the things that we do, and we don't even know that. We think it's all social. We think that it is something that you are just purely expecting just straight from birth, but there's a lot of science behind it. And I want to attack this because let's face it, every now and then, especially in the summertime, when you're out and about, you see someone that you are really attracted to, or, you know, someone that's really attracted to you. There's so many things that go beyond it. There's like cultural things. I know when I see someone that I'm attracted to, I don't really hesitate to say anything unless I'm really distracted by other things. But sometimes I think about what it is that gives me a type. What makes my type my type? A lot of people think, you know, my type is, some people are confused by what my type is because I don't have any like cultural limitations, but there are certain key things that I look for in a woman when I'm really attracted to them. And I don't fully know where it stems from, but I brought someone along to kind of help speak on that, to help speak on the intricacies of the human brain and how it relates to what we're attracted to in our image of self and other people. So without further ado, I want to introduce my very special guest, a returning guest. That's why it's one of my very special guests. Staci Danford, the educational neuroscientist. Welcome to the show, love. How you doing?
Good. I'm so excited to be back.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. I wish I had one of those buttons that just claps when I walk in the room.
I mean, why not just bring in doves? That will kind of like double it up. You know what I mean? You have like out of all the no shade to anybody else I've ever recorded. You have like one of the most like the prettiest smiles on all of like podcasts, because it's just like very like, yeah, it's addictive to look at. It's good.
Thank you.
See, and this is the start of the attraction conversation. No, that
is actually one of the first things people look at is your smile.
Really?
Yes.
All right. We're going to get into that. Give everybody a quick introduction of who you are, what you're about, and how you like to serve the community that you partake in.
Hey, okay. Well, I'm just a country girl from West Texas who went back to school to become a neuroscientist. And I was a teacher for 25 years. And I was always fascinated by what was going on in the brain and why some kids learned things and some kids didn't. And mostly why when they were having a bad day why they couldn't learn. And I knew it was something more than intelligence, and I wanted to know what it was. So I went back to school to become a neuroscientist.
So you nerded it out and you're like, listen, I'm going to go fully into this. I don't care what anybody thinks. Because you know what's crazy? When you're in school, sometimes I wonder like what makes people go into certain subjects. And sometimes it's like a triggering point in their lives that make them like focus on, okay, I'm going to help people in this, or I'm going to do this for a living. Because living in New York City, I've met so many people that do things that I would have never imagined even exist. So how did you, like, was there like a moment for you that said, okay, I'm going to become like a neuroscientist or an educational neuroscientist?
The worst student I ever taught is the one that turned my life into a new direction.
What do you mean?
He was a 16-year-old junior, and he had just come from military school, mad at the world, chip on his shoulder. Always get my students to enjoy my class and like me, but not him. He was terrible.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst kid I've ever had. So I asked my daughter, who was a senior at the time, I was like, what do you do with terrible kids? And she said, Mom, what do you know about him? And I said, what do you mean? What do I know about him?
Yeah.
And she said, well, what do you know? And I said, I know he's terrible. That's it. And she said, exactly. You know nothing about him. And until he knows you care, he won't care about your class, and he won't care about. And I was like, wow. Okay. So that very next day, I went to class and I was like, I'm going to start asking him questions about himself. I'm going to get to know him.
Wow.
And I'm going to say one nice thing about him every single day.
Wow.
And of course, the very next day, he acted worse than ever. He was awful. And I remember going, this is not going to work. This is so stupid. But the only thing I could say to him, and he'll still tell you that to this day, is I looked at him that first day and I said, Andrew, I love the way you part your hair.
And what did he say?
And he looked at me like, lady, you're on crack. Like, what is wrong with you?
Really? That was his response?
No, I mean, he just looked at me with this most dumbfounded look on his face. And he didn't say anything. And I was like, oh my God, this is the worst idea ever. Well, I kept doing it every day, no matter what. Yeah. And after about 3 weeks, he walked in one day and he smiled. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And then after about 3 months, he walked in and he said, hey, Miss D, what's up? And I was like, oh my gosh, it's working. Well, then by the end of the year, he ended up getting in trouble in all the other classes except mine.
Yeah.
And he ended up leaving our school, but I stayed in contact with him all these years.
Yeah.
And one day we went to coffee and I asked him, I said, what was it that made you act so different in my class? Because you would have had such a different experience.
Yeah.
And he said, Miss Danford, you smiled at me every time you saw me, and you made me feel like you were grateful I was alive.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, it wasn't a lesson I did. It wasn't anything. Wow. And so I went home that day and I started studying about smiling and gratitude.
Wow.
And found out there was a science in both of those. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to figure out what that was. And that's what my graduate research in is gratitude and how it changes the human brain. And I learned it from the worst kid I ever had.
That's such an interesting story. And what I mean by that is like, one, it's very interesting that that's the path that you took to being interested in what you're teaching now and what you're pursuing. But what's also interesting is like how the way we treat people or the way we think we're being treated is a reflection of so many things that we're not aware of, right? So this guy who was thankful for a gratitude of being alive, which is kind of alarming because that could also imply that he didn't have other forms of gratification for existence, which could be very traumatic for a lot of people. I don't know what that person was experiencing at home or any other parts of his life, but just to know that if you smile at somebody and you show them gratitude and then you like basically become a pleasant person to that person with enough reinforcement, that could change a lot of lives, and we don't even realize that oftentimes. Because
we always think it has to be something big or something major we have to do for somebody, and that's just not the truth. And that's not the way our brains are wired. And repetition is the key. I mean, that's the biggest discovery in neuroscience of this decade, and especially, this century, is how wiring can be changed. And it's, neuroplasticity. We alter the connections of our brain by repeated action. And so I was repeatedly talking to him about something I liked about him.
Yeah.
So it changed how he felt about me. And it also changed how he felt about himself. But we can all do that to ourselves, about ourselves. But it takes practice, and it takes repeated over and over and over and over.
Yeah. I mean, that's real. And I'm learning that every day, because I've been known to be quite brash in how I speak. I say I'm upfront in how I speak to a lot of people, but I've had to like grow into understanding that, people might receive me in different ways. So I'm trying to be more conscious of it. And through this conversation, I'll learn a little bit more about myself. Look at that. So you said something at the beginning of the show where you said a smile is one of the first things that people notice when they meet someone. Is that like the very first thing, or is that like part of a group of first things?
I don't know exactly if there's any research on the first thing, but I know there's lots and lots of research about what a smile does and how people perceive you if you smile. They assume you're more intelligent. They assume you're nicer.
Wow.
They've done research in workplaces, and that people who smile tend to be more productive. They tend to make more money. They tend to get raises quicker. People assume that they are working harder. There's just lots of assumptions we make based on the fact if someone smiles or not.
Really?
Yeah. And there's a real smile and not real smiles. There's about 19 different types of smiles.
What?
But there's,
it's a very specific number, 19.
Yeah. There's one genuine smile. It's called the Duchenne smile, and it was named after the scientist that discovered it. But when somebody genuinely smiles, their face crinkles up, their cheeks go up, they get wrinkles on the side of their face, and that activity activates chemicals in your brain, because your brain has about 43 muscles connected to areas in your brain. And so when we smile, of course, our brain thinks we're happy, and it dumps in some feel-good chemicals. And so I have a trick for everybody out there. If you have a pencil, you can trick your brain into thinking you're happy. And it can be a pencil or pen or just anything straight, popsicle stick. But if you cram it in your mouth to the back of your molars, you got to hit your back molars like this.
And what does that do?
It forces your cheeks to go up, and it forces your brain to create what is a real smile. That's how we really smile. And you'll feel it. You'll start to laugh or giggle or whatever. And like in about 4 seconds, your brain has dumped in the happy juice. But
if someone's like, let's say, angry or depressed or feeling sad, do you feel as though if they apply that, it will automatically improve their mood?
I don't know about if you're angry or sad, but if you are irritated or frustrated, and those are easier, to kind of override. And I know when my son was in elementary school, and I swear the Wicked Witch of the West ran the carpool line, and I so bad wanted to drive over the top of her. She was evil. And she would tell us to come forward, so aggressive. And I was like, lady, there's no other place for me to go but forward. You don't have to tell me that. God. It would make me so mad. So I literally would pick him up in the carpool line like this.
With the pin in your mouth?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's not crazy at all, folks.
Yeah. And he would look at me like, Mom, you're so embarrassing. I said, I am trying to smile, get in this car before I run over that woman.
Wow. Okay. Note to self.
Tricks your brain.
I'm gonna try it when I'm really angry, but I might end up biting into the pen. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I would say anger is probably not the best thing to do. I would go with something smaller, like just irritation or frustration.
All right. Well, so that's more so how you feel about yourself when you're smiling, right? We talked about how other people feel when you're smiling at them. And now you're saying how, adjusting your smile.
Brain.
Yeah. adjusting your smile can impact your own brain and what you think of yourself and your mood, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But I want to talk about self-image, like not just how we feel about ourselves emotionally. I want to talk about how we feel about ourselves physically, right? So there's a lot of people who aren't really happy with how they look. There's not a lot of people who like who they are, let alone how they look. But let's focus on how they look. What is the brain doing to someone that is not happy with how they look?
Oh, it's horrible. And what's sad is 78% of women do not feel confident in their bodies.
70 what?
78.
Damn.
And
that's cold.
The percentage is smaller for men, but I mean, still there are men out there who aren't happy with their body. It's a different little bit type of issue.
Yeah.
But when you are not confident in your own body or you don't like yourself, it's like constantly mashing the self-loathing button in your brain.
Yeah.
And what's sad is self-loathing does nothing but negative stuff. If you could self-loathe yourself into new behaviors, we'd all be awesome.
Yeah.
You know, if I could look at, a piece of fat on my stomach or whatever and go, you suck.
Damn.
And it would make me lose weight, or it would make me work out harder. We would all be fit, rich, and skinny. I mean, it just doesn't work. But yet we do it over and over and over. We think that apparently if we hate ourselves, we try harder or do things different, but that does not work. And especially about your own body, because your brain is listening to you 24/7.
Right.
And we have between 50 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And sadly, about 85% of those are negative.
Really?
For the average person. Yes.
What? Why?
It's just how our brains are wired.
Is that because like life is horrible for that many people, or we're perceiving life as horrible?
A little bit of both. And neurologically, our brains are just wired to hold on to danger, sadness, hurt, much more so than they are joy. Matter of fact, joy does not stay in long-term memory unless you purposely put it there.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure something great happened yesterday. Something pretty awesome happened a couple of days ago, but unless it was super fabulous, we don't remember it.
So our brains are always like in the defensive.
Yes. And they're constantly looking out for danger. They're trying to protect you. Is this guy mean? Is this person nice? Should you go faster? Should you go slower? It's just all negative, negative, negative. And it quickly goes to long term, but it also puts your brain in a chemical state of high levels of cortisol, high levels of adrenaline. And over time, it's not good, especially if you're thinking those things about yourself.
So you're saying a lot more women are not satisfied with the way they look, and men is such a lesser number percentage wise.
Right.
Now, is that based on chemical reactions that women have in their brain, or is there something more social?
I personally, I mean, there are definitely differences in the chemicals, and estrogen plays a part in it.
Yeah.
But I personally think that it has a bigger majority of the percentage is about how we're socially wired and how, I mean, just like men can get, a little bit heavy or whatever, and, they're look a little more manly, or they get gray hair and, people say different things about them. They're kind of stately, or they're, we have all different kinds of words, but women, they're like, wow, she's really letting herself go.
Yeah.
And it's different. And, men can be really stern and aggressive, and they're like, wow, he's such a good leader. Yep. And if women are stern and aggressive, well, God, she's a bitch. Wow. And so it's just the way we're socially wired to look at women as physical, and in the very beginning of whenever people started documenting things a long time ago, rape was considered destruction of property because it destroyed the property, which was the female, and it made her lesser than it was before.
Destruction of whose property?
So if your dad was going to give you away to be married and you had been raped, you were tarnished, and there had been a destruction of property. Like
that's like written on documents that is considered destruction of property, not like assault of a person.
It's old, but still we're fighting some of those things, especially like medieval times and early, people, you were betrothed and they traded, 3 horses, a chicken, and a pack of gold for your daughter. And she had no say. And if you weren't a virgin, you had been tarnished, and it was destruction of property for what the father could get for you, the value of yourself. So we've been conditioned over time to think of women differently and than we do men.
It's funny you say that, right? Because when I was a lot younger, I got called in by this modeling agency. Okay. And, I went in, I did the whole tryout thing, the runway thing. They had me try on a bunch of clothes and things like that. And there were other people there also who was also being pursued. And I never really wanted to be a model. Right. But this thing seemed interesting. So I was just like, all right, whatever. Right. So I went in and they called me back and they wanted me to kind of like join their agency and do all this other stuff. And I turned it down. Right. The main reason why I turned it down, well, one, I never really cared about modeling. Right. 2, what I knew about modeling was it was purely based on vanity. Right. And what I didn't want to go through is where my worth was tied to my physicality. Yeah. Right. So right now I take ownership on everything that I do physically and so on and so forth. I'm proud of who I am and who I become and the things that I work hard towards. But that's just me judging myself. Right. But if my livelihood and my value was tied to how I look, and if I'm selected for a particular role or a film or shooting or whatever, and it's purely based on, is my haircut right? Am I chiseled enough? Am I young enough? Am I old enough? Am I, X, Y, and Z? I would lose my mind, right? Yeah. So that I did everything I could to avoid being in that scenario. But when it comes to women, they have to live that day in, day out, because there's a lot of their values based on how they look. I've heard so many stories about like when, professional women are like, let's say on television and they're trying to like make a point. Even women are like judging, their dress, judging their hair and judging how they're, carrying themselves in whatever way. And I'm just thinking to myself like, damn, like that's not giving you enough of a mental headspace to build confidence because you're constantly being critiqued. So that's my perspective on the whole thing. So what you're saying is 100% valid. Yeah.
Right. And sadly, women are more difficult to one another than is helpful, for sure.
Damn.
And, it's so sad that women, see each other, like you said, on TV or out in public or whatever. And we're like, oh God, she should not wear that. Or, oh girl, you need to cut your hair, or just little comments. But men don't look at each other and go, dude, you need to rethink that outfit. I mean, occasionally men who are friends will tease one another, but like my husband's not sitting, watching golf going, God, that guy should have worn blue shorts. Those don't match his skin color.
We're not. We all do it to ourselves for different reasons. And to be honest, there's also the physiological expectation of like procreation and what we're wired to think as like a viable mate for procreation. A healthy offspring comes from a healthy woman, a youthful, vital woman, and a man needs to have resources and all this stuff. Even though we're progressing as human beings, a lot of those things are still embedded in our nature and our DNA, and we can't avoid it that easily. And I don't know if we want to or if we need to. It's just one of those things where it's like you just got to balance what we want physiologically versus what we need socially, and it's just a weird balance,
Right. So, and sadly, what you want physiologically is going to change And sometimes, you wake up at 40 with what you picked at 20 and you're like,
so you're talking about with partners, right?
Yes. And what you thought was attractive moment, can alter over time. And I did an Instagram story about that a few days ago. And, and I said, okay, girls, rethink what's sexy. And I was like, bad boy. I was like, I'm going to be the one that tames you. You're going to love me. And, you can be all these bad things, but, I thought that was attractive. Well, not so much, because guess what the bad boys do? Bad stuff. And they leave you and they do all that. And so my husband was in my office and with his dad bod, and I was saying, look at your belly, babe. And it was jiggling with the thing. And he said, yeah, I'm bringing sexy back. And I said, you sure are. But what I think is sexy now is at 55 is loyalty, is kindness, is very different. And it is attractive to me. And people say, oh yeah, you're just saying that. It really becomes attractive to youth, different things as you progress in age. At 90, there's no people in the nursing home going, golly, look at her body. It's just a different place in life.
I don't know. Maybe the guys are. I don't know.
I don't know. My daughter used to work at a nursing home, and she used to laugh at the things people would say. They want a companion. They want someone who will, go walk around the park. The fact that you can still walk, that becomes attractive.
Yeah.
The fact that you want to go out.
She's a walker. Can you see that? Oh my God. I've never seen a walker like that. You can use your two legs.
As we change and the things that happen in our life, we change, our brain changes.
Right.
And it's important to understand that we think everything is personal. Very little of it is personal. It's all patterns. What pattern does your brain think is attractive? What pattern does your brain think is repulsive? All brain space.
Yeah. I can appreciate all that, but I'm trying to understand, what makes us recognize what's attractive now, right? Like, what's happening in your brain when you're like, okay, this person's attractive and that person's not? A
giant chemical dump of mostly dopamine, but also oxytocin.
Okay.
And sometimes other chemicals too, serotonin. And there's other things that are being involved there. One of my favorite books that's out right now is called The Molecule of More, and it's about the dopamine effect in our brain. So when we think someone is like good looking or attractive or whatever, your brain wants that thing. Yeah. And anytime we want something, we've dumped out dopamine.
Yeah.
And oxytocin makes us, that's the bonding or the love hormone that's released during sex. Serotonin makes you in a good mood. Yeah. So that's being dumped out also. And we get engrossed in these chemicals and we think that it's the person, but that person is actually activating those chemicals in our brain. So dopamine is the one that's the most tricky, because it makes us we want coffee, we want sex, we want gambling, we want shopping, but it doesn't make us like it. And liking are two completely different pathways in the brain.
Wait, what's two different pathways?
Wanting and liking. And that's why the person you wanted, maybe they don't do it for you anymore. And that's when people start to have an affair. That's when people go, do other things. That's why porn is so rampant in the world, because you want it.
Yeah.
But if it satisfied you, if you stayed enjoying it, it would be over. But it keeps you wanting more. That's what dopamine does. You never get enough. That's why it's called the molecule of more. Wow. You always want more. It's an insatiable desire. It's what makes people addicts, alcoholics, all the things.
So how do you know, as a person, how do you know when you are, I guess, attracted to something that is purely a dopamine hit versus something that you are genuinely attracted to?
First of all, you need to wait 6 months.
6 months? Damn, that donut looks good, but 6 months from now, I'm going to eat that donut.
For For people.
Oh, for humans.
Because,
right.
Yeah, because the brain has something called novelty. And after about 6 months, novelty wears off.
6
the
months.
Surprise, the excitement, the spark. That's why so many relationships month mark.
Wait, so many relationships what?
Break up at the 6 month mark, because that's when the novelty begins to wear off. And, you know, people that say, oh, he takes control of everything. It's so sweet. And then like, you know, 8 months in, you're like, you're a control freak.
Oh my God. I've had that same exact thing happen to me. I was dating someone and all I got at the beginning of the relationship was gratitude for how much I'm a good leader. Right. He's like, thank you for taking care of everything. You like, I never have to worry about this. And, you know, you got things handled. You have strong leadership. You know, people follow you and you're a strong man. Like, and I was just like, great, I'm gonna keep doing that. Right. Right. And then what happened is over time, like, I don't know if they forgot that they found that attractive, but then over time they were just like, you always want to have a say in X, Y, and Z, or you always want to, what about if I want to do X, Y? I'm just like, I mean, you could, but that's not what you were praising before.
Right.
You didn't want to do anything, right?
That's novelty in the brain. Yeah. And we do it with cars, boats, everything. I mean, like all of us have gotten a car at one time and we're like, nobody's eating in here.
Yes. Like, oh my God.
And then like 3 months later, you know, there's French fries in the seat.
And let me tell you something. So I bought a new car. I want to say four months ago, something like that, 4 or 5 months ago. And it's nerve wracking because the color it's a white interior. Okay. And in my mind, I'm like, I had never wanted to get a white interior unless I knew I was going to be able to take care of it. And I was going to like be really precious with it. And at first I was like, I tell people like, don't bring your food in here. Matter of fact, take your shoes off when you get in the car, you know, like I'm not playing. So, and even for myself, like I didn't want to wear jeans in the car, because I didn't want to like rub it off. But then like over time, I'm just like, I could really eat this sandwich in this car right now because I don't feel like going inside the rest. I was eating a bagel and then it was a bagel sandwich and like the egg crumbs were like falling and I like used a napkin to try to protect it. But like, and I looked at myself, I'm like, 5 months ago, I would have never let this happen.
Yeah.
I would never let this happen.
That's novelty. And the dopamine has now worn off.
Yeah.
You don't want it anymore because you have it. And now that you have it, liking it requires a whole different purposeful circuitry.
So how do you activate the liking circuitry in your brain so that way, whatever you go after, you're certain that you're going after what you like? How do you tell the difference as a human? That's
where gratitude comes in, because one of them is desire and the other one is right here, right now. What is there right here, right now that I can like about this? What am I grateful for in this moment? Not more. So like in our family, we do that all the time because, you know, my husband and I are getting old and obviously, you know, we don't look like we did when we were 20 and, you know, we're like, okay, I like your butt. Your butt looks good. It's still looking good, honey. And he'll go, okay, don't look at my belly then. And I'm going, okay.
just walk towards me backwards.
You just have to learn to appreciate what you have right here, right now, because that is what steals our joy in life, with things, with our bodies, with everything, is focusing on what you don't have instead of what you do. And most people live their life focusing on what they don't have or what they wish they had. And that's doing nothing but dumping out the chemicals you don't want in your brain.
Well, I mean, so, okay, I have an opposing thought, right? So you mentioned that, okay, they need to show gratitude for what they do have. But you also mentioned that at the beginning of the 6 months, you're showing gratitude to things that you're not going to care for 6 months later. Right? So how do you know when the gratitude you're giving is going to be permanent versus something that's fleeting? That's one. And second, the idea that like a lot of people are focused on what they don't have, I think there's somewhat of a human benefit to that, a societal benefit to that, which is people are seeking to improve. They're seeking to achieve things that they haven't achieved before. So there's that element of not being satisfied, because I know the accomplishments that I've made for myself in my whole life came from me not being satisfied.
But that's different.
Oh, okay.
That's different than wanting something and just moping around because you don't have it.
Oh,
I mean, I'm a big advocate for goals. I have goals all the time. I've got monthly goals, 3-month goals, but I have a plan for them. I don't just sit around and want them and be pissed off that I don't get them, because that steals my joy instead of creating my joy. I want to give myself chemicals, not have them taken away. So if you want, 6 figures, you can want it until the cows come home. You're not getting it unless you do something to make it happen. Yeah. What is your plan? Because action is the only thing that will alter brain function. Action alters brain function. That's why people that create affirmations or mantras that their brain doesn't believe, they can say, I'm fit, firm, and healthy. And your brain's like, girl, you weigh 20 pounds more than you did last year. You can say that all you want, but if you're not doing something, your brain knows what you really believe. It's called belief bias. Yeah. And if your brain knows, I actually hate myself. I actually can't stand to look in the mirror. You can say, I'm beautiful and I love myself. But if you don't get to a place where you mean that, your brain knows you don't. You're not out tricking your brain.
Yeah, but that's like self-affirmations. But what about affirmations from other people?
Affirmations from other people are different because it depends on if you believe them, then your brain will believe it. It registers with your belief bias. Okay. If you don't believe it, then it doesn't work. So say people that have anorexia, and you can say, oh my gosh, you're so skinny, you need to eat or whatever. And their brain still believes they are fat. And it doesn't matter what you say to them. You can tell somebody they're beautiful. And if they do not believe it, it's nice. It's not going to hurt you. The words feel good, but your brain does not hold what it does not believe.
The reason why I'm asking that is because the story you told me at the beginning of this conversation about the student that you were, I guess, affirming in positive ways, and it changed that person's life, or it changed how they responded to you. Is it possible that they believed what you said was true and they believed it in themselves also, and they just needed someone to kind of recognize it? Or were the words enough to get that person to believe?
Oh, definitely the words were not enough. First of all, the words had to be a year's worth of words. Got it. And again, consistency is the key. What do you do repeatedly? Because repetition changes your brain. And the words I was saying, I was really careful to use things that I recognized, not accomplishments, because accomplishments are really tricky with your brain. Because if somebody gets A on a roll or perfect attendance, everybody acknowledges that. You're the top salesman, all those things. But recognition is for characteristics. Yeah. And so I was really careful to say, oh my gosh, I love that you try so hard. Because that's something that goes with you forever. Got it. So over time, he got to where he believed those things because he knew I was telling him the truth.
Interesting. So you mentioned to me earlier in this conversation that you had breast implant removal.
Yes.
Okay.
6 weeks ago.
6 weeks ago. I want to first talk about what was the reason when did you get your first breast implant?
In 2000. It was either at the end of 1999 or the first of 2000.
So about 20 years ago.
Yeah, 22.
22 years ago, you got breast implants. What was the reason you got breast implants, or you felt like you needed breast implants?
That's so funny because people keep asking me that, and I don't really remember. Because I went in to the plastic surgeon to get my nose fixed because it had been broken. Got it. And when I was in there, telling me all the things that were going to do to my nose, there were all these posters of these women that were having breast augmentation. And I also had lots of friends who had it done. Got it. But when I went in there, I really and truly had no intention of doing that.
Really?
But I saw something in them that I did not see in myself, in the pictures and of course it looks so good. And I was like, oh, they look so happy. They're walking on the beach and all that. I was like, oh, maybe I need that.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I need more, because my life was good, but I wouldn't say it was great. And I wanted it to be great.
Yeah.
And in those pictures and in my mind, that looked great. Wow. And so when we want something, our brain tries to figure out a way to get it. And I was like, hey, well, I'm in here. Tell me about, breast implants. And
they're like, got him.
He was like, oh, it's really easy. We could do it all at the same time. And I was like, okay, perfect. So I had my nose done and my breast done all at the same time.
You know what I'm picturing? I'm picturing you're going in for an oil change. You come up with new cars.
It was kind of like that. Of course, they didn't talk me into it. I'm not saying that, but
No. They did. Here's how they did talk you into it.
By the pictures.
Exactly. Right. So like advertising and promotions have a funny way of communicating with people subconsciously.
Right.
And think about what you said. They didn't show you breasts and gave you like different menus of breasts and give you different prices of each breast, and then you select which one you wanted. They presented a lifestyle.
Right.
In the imagery. They said, if you have this, your life is going to be great. Without even saying the words, they're just showing an image of someone who went through that experience, and you can visualize that their life is great. And they communicated that with you without having to say it.
A word. And, this was deep in the heart of the Pamela Anderson days and Baywatch and, the early 2000s, late 90s, all the things. And you're like, oh yeah, I want to run in a red bathing suit, I'm going to save somebody. I'm going to look just like that. And
really?
Your brain thinks they look so happy on TV. They're, saving people and they look so glamorous, and, Hollywood's full of it. And not that it's bad. I have lots and lots of friends who still have them and are perfectly fine. But I had just reached a place where mine had been hurting for 15 years.
What?
Every single day for 15 years.
Oh,
and
how do you live with that?
I know. First of all, you think it's normal because it's just every day, and it wasn't like brutal, it wasn't like bending over pain or anything. And you're like, oh, I guess that's just part of the deal. And then you think, oh, getting these out would be such a pain. I've dealt with it this long.
Yeah.
What am I going to look like?
Yeah.
And at the time I was in my 40s, my early 40s, maybe late 30s, when it really started hurting. And I was, in a new marriage. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to go have all that done, because at that place in my life, I knew nothing about the brain, and I didn't know what was causing me to feel insecure or any of the things. And I thought that was my security.
But what I want to understand is, like, you're having all this pain from the breast implants for 15 years, like you said, every single day. And you never even intended on having those breasts in the first place when you initially went to go get your nose done after you had an injury. What was the transformation mentally once you did have the breast implants?
You froze.
I didn't freeze. I'm just looking at you.
Oh, I didn't hear you say. I didn't hear the question.
No, the question is, what was going through your mind after you got the breast implants? How did it change your life for the better or worse? Oh,
definitely better.
Really?
Especially in the beginning, because again, it's novelty. It's that dopamine. It's like, wow, every shirt was tight and fitted. My husband at the time was like, oh my gosh. I would get stares from people. Things fit differently. You looked better in a bathing suit. All that stuff that at the moment made me forget all the other things I didn't like. So it was almost like it numbed all of that because it lit this one thing up.
Yeah.
And for a while it lasted. And just like everything, wears off.
But did it wear off in terms of your perspective of self, or did it wear off in terms of the people that once congratulated you or that gawked at you for the very breast that you paid for?
Probably both.
Okay.
All of the people that I saw in town, that knew me or whatever, after 6 months, people forget, and that's just who I was. And it wasn't, anything special anymore. It's just Staci. And, matter of fact, when my new surgeon asked me, what size I was before, I couldn't even remember. So long, I don't even know. This feels like who I am. It's been 22 years. And so it becomes so much of you that you can't remember what you were before.
Yeah.
Especially over as amount of time I've had. And I was a little bit afraid of, I've had this for so long, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to be without it?
Wow. So did you feel, because at the beginning, did you feel like you could accomplish more by having them?
Oh yeah.
What were you able to do by having breast implants that you weren't able to do before, besides wear different clothes?
I think it gave me the confidence that I couldn't seem to get any other way. And because I'm kind of a little person and I've always felt super average. And it kind of gave me that 1-up level. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Now I'm little and big. Yeah. And I was like, now I've got that thing, that people all want. We want to be the tallest or the coolest or the smartest or the whatever. And that kind of moved me up, I think, mentally to a different space, a little bit different level of confidence. Because I would be lying if I didn't say it did make me more confident. It did.
So what were the downsides of getting breast implants besides the pain that you experienced 15 years prior to removing them?
I would say mostly, I think it changed how I looked at my own body, because I started having to dress to have that be the number one. Well, as I got older, I didn't want that to be the number one. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not wearing that. I've never been, a cleavage person, but then I would have to get a bigger shirt and smaller pants because it didn't fit. Yeah. And then it became annoying. And I would try to jog, and have to wear 3 bras and it hurt. And I was like, and the whole, so tight. And I was like, this is a pain in the butt. I wish I would have never done.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it. By the time I finally got them done, I literally hated them and I could not wait to get them out.
Yeah, but when you had it at the beginning, you felt really good about yourself. But did you start feeling worse about yourself over time because of the decision, or because you later didn't even like how they looked?
I think they numbed the other things I didn't like about myself. And as time went on, when that wasn't new anymore, the other things started to come back up out of the surface. It's kind of like it covered them up, like it got covered under the rug. Yeah. And as they became my normal Staci, the other things came back to the surface. And I was like, oh, wow, I still don't like that. I still don't like that. I still don't like that. Wow. And it no longer covered all the ills of my self-esteem like it did in the beginning.
But did you ever think to have more surgery for the things that you didn't like about yourself? Because because I find a lot of people who had, it's like Pringles. Once you pop, you can't stop, right? Yeah. So I find that a lot of people who's gotten through surgery, it's like a whole package sometimes, right? Because once you have the breast implants, then you get the BBLs that people are doing now, and I don't even know how safe or not safe those things are. And I see people who get facial reconstruction and stuff like that. So it's like a whole package deal. I was traveling, I was in Europe less than a week ago, and I came across different types of people, and one of the destinations was Barcelona. So there's a lot of people on the beach. So there's a lot of breast implants, a lot of, older men with these young, I don't know. But the point is, it just seems like it became like a lifestyle to adjust the way you look. So what kept you?
And I think it can become a cover up. for all the other issues in your self-esteem and your self-worth that you can't fix.
Yeah.
And so you start looking at what you can fix and you're like, oh, I can fix that. Oh, I can get that fixed. Oh, I can get that fixed, which is fun. I mean, I've got lots of friends who've done a lot of things. I've done some other things that I like and I don't, want to trade them at all. I just had my eyes done about 2 years ago.
How do you do your eyes? What do you mean?
I had my eyelids done. They were sitting on I had lost all my peripheral vision. It's called like the hooded eye, where your eyelid sits on top.
Oh.
And it made me look tired all the time. And I was like, I'm not tired. I just woke up. I hate this. And I love that. I'm very glad I did that. But I think for me, I didn't want to be a different person. I wanted to be this person as good as I can be. I didn't want anything that made me be a different person anymore.
Got it. Interesting. All right. So did the breast implants ever do any harm to your relationships?
Well, my ex-husband might tell you that.
What do you mean?
He always says that somebody else is married to his money.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, that's, if you use the money from that marriage for breasts that benefited the next marriage, I can see a guy saying something like that. I can see that. In
court, he's mostly teasing me because we have a great relationship. But I think that, even in my husband that I have now, I was a little afraid, how I was going to look, how he was going to feel. But of course, he's so great about it. He's like, you do you. Like, we're old. What are we, looking for in life? Yes, I like boobs, but that, I'm good.
Yeah.
And what's funny though, is several women ask me, what is your husband going to think?
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we, archaic? Like, is this, I felt like I was watching that show of whatever that one on Hulu is. Hey, gone backwards in time. Like, what is happening right now? But people are still conditioned to think women have to look the way men want them to look. And so they would ask that, like, what is your husband going to think? Well,
I don't think it's a matter of like they have to look the way their husband want them to look. I think it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. There's vanity is, as vain as it is, it's an important part of what draws us to each other in a lot of ways. It's not the only thing, and it's not, the most forever lasting thing that attracts you to someone, but it's like an introductory thing that is also kind of like, okay, this is something that I like and it contributed to why we're together. So like if I'm, let's say, with a woman who likes the fact that I work out, likes the fact that I'm a certain height, likes the fact that, I'm a certain glowing skin tone or whatever the hell it is. And that's a compliment that they give me because that's what they're attracted to. If I somehow remove that, I stop working out, right? I stop working out. I, have a bunch of different things like my hair starts fading or this, that, and the third, even though it's all biological. They might say to themselves, I was attracted to this version of you versus that version. Now you might have other life experiences that supersede it, right? Like you said, the loyalty, the history you have with the person, the conversations and how much you have that person's back. Those are all important, but let's not kid ourselves here. Attraction is a big deal. You're a very attractive woman. And I don't think your husband is ignoring that.
Oh, no. And I still think he's super good looking. I like the fact he's 6'2". I love the fact he used to play college football. I like the fact that I know I'm never going to be bigger than him. He's big. He makes me feel safe. He's got big shoulders. He has a great head of hair. There are many, many things I still find super attractive. And emphasized by the other things that I find attractive too. And I think that, even older people, my dad is 75 years old and he thinks his girlfriend is super cute, and he'll say, whoa, she's a good looking lady.
Yeah.
And I mean, we always think that because we always are going to have eyes that register so many areas of our brain, what we see, if we find it appealing.
Yeah.
And it's always going to light up. I mean, my husband and I tease each other now. We'll see a movie and I'll go, whoa, he's a hottie. I hope he comes back on here. Of course, he'll be 25 or whatever. And, and he said, thank goodness we're to the place where we know that, we always are going to see things that are pretty. That's just the way we're wired.
Yeah.
The gross food to eat. I mean, we eat with our eyes too. We're like, ooh, that looks gross. Uh-huh. And being disgusted is one of the 7 things your brain does automatically. Whatever things repulse you, it's going to send out signals to your brain.
Yeah.
And it would be a big fat lie to say people don't, turn you on or turn you off, especially certain offs. You're like, ooh, no.
So
never.
So you got the breast removed or the breast implants removed. How did it affect you afterwards?
Oh my gosh, it has been amazing.
Really?
Wonderful. Oh yeah. My pain went away instantly.
Okay.
I had, out of all the breast implant illness, which I didn't even know was a thing until about a year ago, and I saw it on the internet and people were talking about all the symptoms, and I was like, I have that. I have every single one of them.
Illnesses?
Yes, it's called breast implant illness. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
What is that? What are the symptoms? What is that?
Oh, there's cognitive, brain fog, lymph nodes, hair loss, fatigue, thyroid issues. There's a huge list. I've been talking about it nonstop. Nobody ever told me about it, ever.
Wait, even when you got the breast implants, they didn't mention that those are the possible complications?
No. And I don't know if they knew back then. A new thing. I just know hundreds and hundreds of women are having theirs removed because they're having the same set of issues and they seem unrelated. And you're like, what is my hair loss? Pain in my boob and my lymph nodes are all swollen. I mean, how does that have anything to do? Isn't it messed up? But they are all symptoms of breast implant illness.
Yeah, but what I'm not understanding, this is kind of like a very cliche thing, right? Because you're saying brain fog, right? So brain fog would imply that it numbs down your cognition, right? So there's this running joke of the dumb pretty girl, but she's pretty, but if she has breast implants, could that be contributing to her intelligence?
Maybe. For me though, I had just kind of chalked it up to age. And so, I kind of thought about my lymph nodes. I was like, oh, maybe that's just allergies. And they're all things that are small. So you kind of just brush them off.
So so the hair loss,
yes.
How is that tied to breast implants?
It is. I do not know how all of it is affected. I don't know if it's the chemicals. I don't know if it's the inflammation from your body fighting plastic. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know many of the symptoms were gone the very next day. That's
great that you're able to get rid of it through that procedure. Because that would have been horrible if you realized too late that you were having all this traumatic physical experience because of breast implants and you weren't able to do it in time. Because I know there's risk factors in the procedure after a certain age or after you've already reached certain levels of symptoms or something like that, right? So I don't know what's involved, but I'm glad you were able to take care of it the way that you wanted to. But were there any negatives or downsides after removing the breast implants?
Other than for me being still for 3 weeks, which was brutal because I'm very ADD and hyper and I can't stand to be still.
Yeah.
And you can't lift your arms over your shoulders or, you have to let all that heal. That was really the only thing. The pain was almost nothing for me. I have a super high pill. It was the easiest surgery I've ever had.
I mean, that's good. I mean, I would hope that in 6 months, you're saying the same thing as you said in 6 months, what you are attracted to could change. So I hope that doesn't change for you. And I know a lot of people who have a lot of like ill perspective of their bodies, right? And maybe it leads to surgery or it leads to like self-mutilation because of how much they hate themselves. Can you talk about what part of the brain causes people to go into, let's say, depression or any type of body dysmorphia based on their view of themselves?
Well, the parietal lobe is what affects our body image. So if you're going to put a pair of glasses up on your head, that area is your parietal lobe. Yeah. And it affects how your senses come in. Yeah. But so what you see, what you smell, what you hear, but it also affects your space, like how you feel. Am I smaller than? Am I seeing everybody that's smaller than me, bigger than me? It affects how we think about our weight, our size, all of that. And there's a really famous study. It was funny. It was from a university college in London where they put these fake hands on people and they told them to grab their waist. But the hands had a mechanism in them that made it feel like it was shrinking. And it's called the shrinking waist syndrome. And it made people feel like their waists were getting smaller. And when they touched their own body with this crazy hand, and they had them all connected, to technology where they could see inside their brain. And that area, the parietal lobe, is the one that fired because it's the one that associated with, wow, I'm feeling like I'm getting. They've also done studies where, they put your hand under a blanket and put a fake hand right beside you. And then they'll stab the fake hand with a knife and the people will jump, even though they know that it's not theirs. But that area of the brain is impacted by our own body and how we feel about ourselves. And so when we hate how we look, how we feel about ourselves, that area activated and it causes other chemicals to be produced. So depression is the lack of serotonin and some other things. When you are feeling anorexia, they are realizing now that maybe body dysmorphia and anorexia, even though that's not my area of specialty, there's a lot of research out there that part of the brain has some malfunctioning that makes it not ever get the correct information. You still see yourself as fat, or you still have, completely distorted views of how you feel about your own body. So
people who have like anorexia or who are bulimic or who just have body image issues, you think there's like a chemical imbalance? It's not just like a social impression that they're having?
Well, the social impression causes the chemical reaction.
But you're saying there's a part of the brain that's dysfunctional. So is the social impact creating the dysfunction, or they always have the dysfunction and the social impact activates that dysfunction?
Yeah, that is the area scientists cannot agree on. Wow. There's two areas of study. One is the emotion causes the chemical, and the other one is the chemical causes the emotion. Yeah. And really no one has been able to prove one or the other. But there are always chemicals involved. Our brain is a chemical making machine. We think it just thinks and learns. Yeah. It doesn't. It does lots more.
So how do you feel about like the fact that we have access to so much images of people on social media, as well as on the, movies and internet, so on and so forth? You're saying that the part of the brain that determines how well you like yourself also determines how you compare yourself to other people, right? So what do you think that kind of access to information and images of other people is doing to that part of your brain?
I think it's causing a great deal of damage, especially in people 21 and under who don't have a completely formulated prefrontal cortex. Like teenagers, they can't see up in the future and they don't understand that part of their brain's not developed. And they're looking at, Joe Blow, who has 1 million followers on TikTok and he's making millions. And the way he does it is he's dancing with his shirt off. Oh, the way she does it is, she's grinding a pole. Oh, I guess I need to do that. I feel like I should look like that or whatever. But as adults, we do it also by only putting the pretty stuff out there, which makes people perceive that's the actual amount of pretty things in your life. And even though we know it's different, there's a heuristic in the brain that makes our brain believe the average we see is the actual average. And it influences, how we feel about things. And we think, oh, all her Instagram's beautiful and she's going to all these places and her husband always kissing her and her kids are perfect and her pantry has the little chalkboard symbols and she's so much better than me. When really she's got crap days too. She just doesn't put it on Instagram.
You know what? I think about stuff like that too, because like, I don't like the idea of being on social media, but unfortunately the space that I'm participating in requires me to do so. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't even be, it is up to me, but I still want to do this podcast. I want to like have these types of conversations and move, I guess humanity in a way that is, beneficial to people. But at the same time, I have to put things on there that are attractive, right? I notice like, I'll post certain things about the podcast and I'll get certain comments and so on and so forth. But then I remember one time I was just at the beach and I had my shirt off and I had a photo and then people were like just, commenting and doing all this stuff. I'm just like, a part of me feels like, yeah, okay, this is cool. But a part of me is also like, am I causing depression in someone else who might not be experiencing some of the things that I'm experiencing?
Possibly. But I think, we can never control what somebody else is thinking, even if we try.
Sure.
And I think that I personally try to average out the pretty and the real. And I put a picture of myself the other day on Instagram with my charcoal toothpaste and my hair was sticking up everywhere. And I woke up this way, flawless. And people were like, oh my God. But I was like, that's really how I wake up. Yeah. That's not, I don't wake up with makeup and hair and, perfect lighting. I look like crap when my lighting's not on too. I've got wrinkles, I've got cellulite, I've got all the stuff. But I can hide it if I need to, or that's really what I look like here at home.
Well, listen, I can appreciate that. And I think the level of confidence that you are exhibiting about yourself now might be like tenfold to maybe how you felt when you were like 20, 21, self-conscious about so many different things. And I wish a lot of women could escalate their path to having that kind of confidence. Men too. Men have insecurities about different things, but for say the conversation, we're talking about body image, and apparently 78%, like you said, of women.
78 are not confident in their own body. But there's 4 ways that people can improve their self-esteem.
Really?
Can I tell them to you right quick?
Go ahead.
Okay. So number 1 is quit looking at what size the clothes are. Because right now, especially for women, I can literally go to shopping and I can buy to a 10, depend on the designer, what brand it is. I get stuck in the, oh my God, if this is not my size, I'm a failure at life. I suck as humanity. And women in particular are so hung up on what size they wear. It is a major thing. I know men probably don't care, but for women, it is huge. Yeah. And if we'll quit looking at the size and look at what looks good on you, like, wow, you look good in that. Cut the tag out if you need to, but stop being focused on that. Then the second thing is to know your favorite part of your body and play it up. If it's your shoulder blades, then quit worrying about your stomach. If it's your legs, stop worrying about, you've got back fat or whatever. Everybody's got something good. Maybe it's their neck, maybe it's whatever, but play up your good features instead of focusing on what you're not. Focus on what you are. Then the scale, I know friends of mine that weigh like 3 times a day. I'm like, why would you do that to yourself?
They weigh themselves 3 times a day.
3 times a day. I'm like, maybe you drank something. Like, what? Stop that. It is one of those things that sets you up for a giant. And if we'll quit looking at the size and look at what looks good on you, like if it's your shoulder blades, then quit worrying about, your stomach. If it's your legs, maybe it's whatever. Everybody's got something good. Maybe it's their neck, maybe it's whatever. But play up your good features instead of focusing on what you're not. Focus on what you are.
They weigh themselves 3 times a day.
brain. It's going to stress you out. It's going to create anxiety. It's going to make you mash the self-loathing button. It's not good. Terrible. I mean, if you're going to weigh every couple of days. I weigh once a week. Sometimes I don't even weigh. I could care less. I know how my clothes fit. That's kind of what I go by. Okay. And then this is the big one, is the things about yourself that you hate. Think about what they do for you. So let's say for years and years, I hated my legs. I always wanted long, skinny legs. Well, I'm 5'2", so I'm not going to have long anything.
Yeah.
And so I've always had super muscly legs, and I hated them. And then now I look at, what do my legs do for me? My legs take me anywhere I can climb a mountain. I've walked to my son's ball games. I've jumped up and down when he scored the winning goal. My legs do a lot. So I focus on what they do instead of what they don't. Wow.
I mean, those are all great things. The only thing that I'm like questioning is the whole weighing yourself, 2 or 3 times a day. I think 2-3 times a day is insane. But I don't want to say used to, but every now and then I weigh myself every day. Right? It's not because I'm like just obsessed with how much I weigh. It's because I'm actively working out. Right? And I'm trying to gain weight. Right? So I'm eating certain things. I'm eating at a certain frequency. I'm working out a certain amount. And I'm just trying to see, what my efforts are doing to my body. Am I progressing or am I digressing?
But I would say you're not suffering from low self-esteem and body.
Oh, got it. Okay. Because I'm thinking if a woman is like working out to like lose weight, I know a lot of people who lost weight drastically by changing diet and so on and so forth, but they're able to track what's working by weighing themselves. So if you're saying if it's not tied to like depression or body dysmorphia or anything like that, then yes.
And if you're not hating your body, but if you get on the scale every day and you don't work out and you hate yourself, why are you doing that?
I got you. Yeah. If you're not going to work out, don't get on a scale. Don't get on a scale. If you get on a scale and you don't like what you see, start changing it today. If it means having a healthier lifestyle and so on and so forth. But if you're just getting on a scale just to like remind yourself of how much you hate your weight, then that's a problem.
Yeah. You're just mashing the self-loathing button that does no good.
So I want to get into a part of the show where we're answering questions that come from previous guests or previous, not previous, but like listeners of the show. Okay. So I have about 2 questions that I want you to answer. All right. We're going to start with the first one. We'll keep it light for the first. All right.
How do you define a healthy relationship?
I would say, that's so cute, little voice. I would say a healthy relationship is one where both participants feel like the relationship is beneficial. It's equally give and equally take, because just because you're in one does not mean it's healthy. And just because you stay in one does not mean it's beneficial. There are people that say, we've been married 55 years.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, yeah, but you're miserable and you hate each other. Why would you brag about that? Yeah. That's not equally beneficial.
That's interesting you're saying that. So like, what is the better thing to congratulate if it's not the amount of years you're with somebody?
I would say, are they happy? All you're doing is really proving you can endure pain. Like,
wow.
Is that really something we want to brag about?
That's interesting, because a lot of times people reminisce about the good old days, right? My grandparents were together for 55 years, or, like I want a relationship like this couple. They've been together for 40 years, X, Y, and Z. And the thing you can see externally the most is the time spent. Yeah. But to your point, like the quality of the relationship is more important than the length of it.
Yes.
Right. And I know a lot of men who have the it's cheaper to keep her approach to their marriage or relationship. Whereas from the outside, people are like, see, he's a loyal guy. He's this and a third, but that guy could be miserable. Same thing with, I was having this, this is probably a different episode where I need to talk about my pessimism. I was in Europe with my brother, and he was looking at these other couples in Europe, right? So I was there with a bunch of my guy friends. A lot of them were married. And then towards the latter end of the trip, it was just my brother and I. The other married ones went home for obvious reasons. They got responsibilities and, things like that. And my brother and I were looking at like these other couples, like when we were in like Spain, and he was like he'll see a beautiful girl with like, some guy who's like, enjoying his time with her. And he's like, oh man, like good for him, this, that, and the third. And I'm sitting there like, dude, he probably hates her guts and you don't even know, or she's probably dying to leave this guy. Like you have no idea. I mean, I know that's a pessimistic approach, but it speaks to the thing of like, I try to force myself to not look at just the external superficial representation of relationships and try to really hone in on what actually makes people functional in relationships, what gives them satisfaction and the longevity in a very genuine and healthy way. So to your point, yeah.
Because just because they're together does not mean they're equally beneficial, and they're probably maybe not happy.
Yeah.
And I think we perceive what we would feel if that was us.
Yeah.
So we assume they feel the same way.
Yeah.
And that's not always true.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Let's go into the next question. All right.
Honestly, in what ways have you judged age gaps or sugar dynamics in relationships? And since it's becoming normalized, would you be willing to make fewer judgments about those involved in non-traditional relationship dynamics like age gaps or sugar relationships?
Okay, first of all, I have no idea what a sugar relationship is. Never even heard of that.
A sugar relationship is basically sugar daddies and sugar babies.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Okay. And so her question was, have I judged
Yes.
people?
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
How so?
And I think we would be lying if we don't say we judge people. I think that's our first instinct. What do you do with it? Do you stop it? Do you carry on with it? Do you continue it? I mean, sometimes I see people and I'm like, wow, wonder why they're together. And, like, I don't see what's going on there. But then I always catch myself and go, oh, okay, well, I don't know what happens in their relationship. They may be, who knows what they are. But I think, again, we perceive our brain's experiences in their relationship. And so we think, oh, I would never be with somebody that age, or, oh, if I was with somebody that age, the only reason I would be X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Perceive ourselves in everybody we see. And I mean, I've had that myself. My oldest son is 32, and then my youngest son is 14. So they're, almost 20 years apart. And sometimes, especially when Brady, my little one, was younger, we would go places and I would be with Brent. And then we had this, like 3-year-old with us.
Yeah.
And people would look at me like, cougar, you trapped that poor boy, made him have a baby.
What?
They're both my sons.
Wow. They would think that.
Yeah, I mean, and you could just see, they would just give you the look. And because my oldest son has always looked older, but you could tell, obviously he was younger than me, but it was funny. And I was like, they're both mine. They're both my sons.
That's insane. But it also speaks to the fact that like what we normalized, right? Because I think they have a normalized idea of what a family structure is supposed to look like, what
Right.
the proper age gaps are supposed to be. So when something's abnormal, they assume certain things because they probably assume that someone with a son that is that old is not going to have another son that is that young. So they
Right.
immediately go to what's normal for them. So the only thing that could be an explanation, right, is that X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's I don't think I've ever judged anybody who is a sugar baby or sugar daddy. I think the only time that I'll really judge or at least have an opinion about someone's relationship when it comes to stuff like that is whether they're like sugar babies or sugar daddies. I think anytime someone is being taken advantage of, like very
Right.
vividly, I don't care what title you put it, I'm gonna like have some judgment. I'm gonna like, I remember one time I saw that, okay, maybe the guy liked it. I don't know. I saw this guy. I was in Miami. This was like a couple years ago. I was in Miami and I was in the car and I looked on the side of the street and there was this woman who was like dressed to the nines. She looked like she was like maybe in her 20s or maybe early 30s. She had like these big, designer glasses on, everything, and she's just prancing with her purse. And there was this guy who he just had a button-up shirt just like this and some jeans and maybe some nice shoes, and he's walking behind her holding all her shopping bags, and then he's just kind of straddling along while she's leading the way in the whole walking down the street. And it just seems so disadvantageous for the guy. So in my mind, I'm like, I feel like this guy's being taken advantage of. But then in my mind, I'm like, maybe he likes it. So I have no idea. So that's how I see things like that. So I try not to catch judgment, but anytime I feel like someone's getting taken advantage of, I feel some type of way. But
And I think we always put ourselves in those shoes. Like if you were that guy carrying all that, you would think that was awful. So instantly you thought, what if this guy likes that? Because that's terrible. I would never do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind holding bags for the woman that I'm with, but I understood what I was looking at because it just looked very Miami. Okay,
and it felt like she'd put herself at a different level.
Yeah, it felt like he was trying to catch up to her. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's my thought on it. What are some questions you have for the next guest?
Okay, I have a good one. Okay, so I think that it's really important to separate your brain from being automatic to intentional.
Okay.
So I ask people all the time, what intentional practices do you do daily to increase your well-being?
Oh, okay. I like that.
And then the second one is, what have you done today to spread kindness to another person?
Okay, I like that. Those are my
goal.
Those are your two?
That's my goal every day, spread kindness to at least one person. Okay, and then I made another one about body image. You want that one? What do you do when you feel bad about yourself?
Oh, bad about yourself in terms of
your body image.
All right, so re-ask the question and include body image.
Okay, what do you do when you feel bad about your body image?
Okay. Because
that's when a lot of people drink, go shopping, go do a Netflix binge. Okay.
I mean, I should probably talk about that when I speak to someone about like pregnancies and fertility and stuff. Those are good ones. Listen, this was a very phenomenal conversation. I think it even tops the first one we had because I feel like this one got really personal for you, even though it got personal for you on the last one. Maybe that's why I like my conversations with you, because I feel like you have a way of like being involved in the science that you are passionate about. And I think that's a very wonderful thing. And it gives you a lot of credibility because you're living a lot of the things that you're discussing. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. I feel like I'm living proof that you can turn the life you have into the life you want.
Look at that.
It's never too late.
Let everybody know how they can find you and what, let's say, programs you have going on that people can take advantage of.
Okay, I have a new text line, which I'm super excited about.
Okay.
And I send like little brain boosters or little motivation, and they can just text the word yes to 817-242-6831. And they'll get a little brain boost. And then I have my new podcast called A Mental Makeover that is out now. I've recorded episode number 3. It's brand new.
Right on.
Yeah. My goal is to make neuroscience accessible to the public and not just the scientists. And I think we all need to know what's going on in our own brain.
I appreciate that very much because like, even though my podcast has a lot of like relationship related things, my ultimate like goal and really what I'm ambitious about is having conversations like this, where you're really dissecting the human psychology and how it affects us socially and the things that we think are just us and when we really dissect the bigger thing that's affecting how we move around each other and with ourselves. And I think if you have that podcast and you can attract those kind of people, I'm going to be listening in. I hope you guys are tuning in. What's the name of it again?
A Mental Makeover.
A Mental Makeover. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Damisse. You can find me at j.damisse for IG, j_damisse for Twitter. For the podcast, it's Introspect_Club. That's on IG, Twitter, Patreon, YouTube, you name it. We're on all streaming platforms. If you have any questions you want answered on the show, please reach out to us on our DMs and we will answer it just like we did on this episode. And if you are a unique individual with unique experiences that other people can learn from, reach out to me. I might be able to get you on the show. Make sure you like and review us, comment, follow us, subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. If you guys really enjoyed this conversation, please share it with a friend, share it with a friend, share it with a friend. Cannot say it enough. Staci, thank you so much for this conversation. It was phenomenal and I didn't expect anything less.
Thank you. It was super fun.
Yes, I'm gonna practice smiling now and put a pin on my face at the end of this. I don't have a pin here. I want to put like this keyboard in my face and just
Cram it. You have to get the back molars.
Until next time. All right.
See you then.